Oh hey guys, welcome back to another video from Kentcarmedia. Today we are going to be going over a complete buyer's guide for the MB1 and the MB2 MX5, or if you're from the States, Miata.
One of the first things we're going to check for is the see if we've had any leaks in the boot. So there are a few places that we can have some leaks in here. So the first thing you really want to check is that the floor isn't too damp. I've had a leak in here. I've had a leak in here in the battery tray. So that was when I first bought this car. The battery tray was full of water, which hasn't come back, but I suspect that's because I did put the hardtop on properly. But the three main seals then are, you got the main boot seal. So you want to be checking that this is not perished, damaged, any cuts. Behind the lights on here, you have three little disc seals, like little rubber seals behind each one of the bolts. And then the most likely culprit is actually underneath these mounts where the Frankenstein bolts would sit for the hardtop. So under there, it might be damp. It's all jizzy under there. So that could also run down and cause some damp boot. Right, so in terms of roofs, so the Mark IIs mainly have mohair roofs, which is this is. Possibly you can have a vinyl roof, although I haven't really seen them. And what you want to be doing is checking the general condition of this, because they are about £300 to £400 second hand and a pain in the ass to fit. So it is a really good idea to pick a car with a nice roof. So common issues are obviously cuts and tears across the main body. You want to be checking the door seals. Down the back here, obviously you've got a window. You can either have a glass or a plastic window. Personally, I wouldn't have one with a plastic window because I don't think they look very good. But typically you can get this a problem where the glass will start to come away from the actual fabric. So the stitching is failing around there. The drain for the roof, the water actually runs under here and gets funneled down towards the sides, which actually drains inside of the car. So it's a good idea to ask the person you're buying it from when the last time was that they cleaned their drain. Give you a good idea if they knew what they was doing. Drains will be cleared using what Ollie describes as a trumpet brush.
It's called a trumpet brush.
But basically big pipe cleaner.
You shove down the hole.
But yeah.
Shove your pipe cleaner in the hole.
Exactly. And the drains come all the way out of the sill, but we'll get back to that later. So particularly if you're looking for an MB1, or other referred to as a Mark IIus, it is a good idea to have a good look at the condition of the headlights. Now, these are plastic and they do go hazy over time. Personally, my ones, even though this is quite a low mileage car, they were quite yellow, so I bought some second-hand ones, but they're still not perfect. But if you were looking to put some perfect headlights back on from new, because to be honest, there isn't really any aftermarket options for the Mark II. The Mark 2.5 there is some, but they're apparently not very good. They're about £300 a corner from MX5 parts, so very, very good. So there are a couple different engine variations you can go for with these. With the Mark II and 2.5, you have three choices. So you have a 1.6, which this is. You have a standard 1.8, and then you also have the 1.8 VVT, which stands for variable valve timing. So how can you tell between the three? Well, you see this 1.6, the difference is with 1.8, the manifold will split in two, so you have a separate cover on the top. And then to be able to tell if you've got a VVT or not, you have a big square VVT module right here on the front. So it's pretty obvious. Drawbacks of a 1.6R is that they are incredibly underpowered from stock. So if you're NA, you're looking, I think, around 100 horsepower from factory. Not great. I think the 1.8 is around 140 and...
No, the VVT is 140.
What's 1.8 then? 130?
120, 130, yeah.
Oh. Well, basically they're all fucking slow.
Yeah.
The 1.8 VT is the fastest out of the box, okay?
But the least tunable.
But yeah, the least tunable. There you go. But as you can see, hello, I'm no longer slow.
Got a turbo.
So production started for the Mark II in 1998, and that ran till the 2000s. Then they came up with the facelift, or the NBFL, and that ran to 2005. So if we quickly then just go over how you can differentiate between the two. First off, the first thing you can do to check is the front headlights are different, so that is probably the easiest way. These are NB1s. The Mark 2.5s have a separate main beam and low beam bulb, so they have an extra light in each headlight. The other way to check is around on the back of the car. The rear headlights as well have a change. So these ones here are actually from a Mark 2.5, and I fitted them to mine because I've done the Halo mod. So they're pretty much a straight swap if you swap the loom. But so this came available in with 3 transmission types. So we start with what I've got here. The most common is the 5-speed manual. Now that came with most editions, and then they brought out a second manual gearbox, which is a 6-speed. Now the 5-speeds are incredibly cheap because they're so common. The 6-speeds are worth around £600 second hand. So if you could pick up a cheap MX5 with a 6-speed in it, you've got some good saved money in there if it's too rusty, etc., and you have to end up breaking it at some point. So the last option is the automatic, which I believed was a 4-speed. Now, not overly common because who's going to buy a 2-seater sports car and buy a 4-speed automatic gearbox? So not only did they have 3 types of transmission, we also had 3 types of differential available. So starting with the most common then, which this is here, you'd have the open diff. Now this is what you get on most standard road cars, so power will always go to the wheel with the least resistance. So not great if you're on track and stuff like that. Now you can tell between the 3 with it off the car, obviously, which obviously is not going to be very helpful when you're going to try, because you're not going to take someone else's diff off when you're going to go look at their car. But the safest way to look at it is generally the LSDs came on some of the special editions and then trying to cross-reference from there. The 2 types of LSDs that you could have got, one of them is a Torsen, which is the safest money. They go for around £500. They do come in different gear ratios depending on whether they were a 5 or a 6-speed. They moved to the Super Fuji. Now this came on the 6-speed Sport editions and maybe some other models as well. But with these, I can always guarantee if they haven't been taken off and repaired by the guy in Ireland who repairs them, then I can always guarantee that they're no longer an LSD because they have tabs in which break over time.
So if you're looking to buy an MX5 of any year, the main issue that they suffer from, as you well know, is rust. Okay, so I'm going to quickly show you a few points that they can rust, so you can go and check for yourselves when looking at one you're potentially going to buy. So they rust here, 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 and here, 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 here.
So I'm assuming you've already obviously watched probably some buyers guides, and you've probably noticed that 60-70% of everyone's videos cover rust, and that's because that is this car's main issue, and as Ollie mentioned, they pretty much can rust anywhere, but there are some key places where you need to be vigilant when buying your MX5. Obviously it's going to be very expensive come MOT day. So Mr. Mazda, his divine wisdom on the Mark II, changed the chassis legs, which is this part from the front here running up to sort of the back of the firewall, of a double skinned metal, which gave it more strength. Yay! However, due to them being double layered, moisture would get inside between the two layers and they rot from the inside out. So generally, once you've seen them, when you can see the rust on them, they're already too far gone. The only way to really check it is to really get underneath the car. Failing that, your best bet is to come in with one hand, get underneath here, behind this plastic, be careful it's hot, and start feeling for holes. If you can feel holes, then they're gone. They haven't been repaired properly.
Any holes are gone?
These ones are not goals. So you'll be looking at, for double chassis leg repair, you're probably looking at the best part of £1,000. Yeah, save your pennies, boys. Okay, so the second area you really want to pay some attention to is this rear sill around here. Again, there is an inner and an outer sill. And if we go back to what we mentioned earlier about drains, so basically what happens is the drain for the roof actually goes through and it drains just under here, just underneath the rear of the sill. So if that's blocked, all the water that goes in that drain actually fills the sill up and then they rot from the inside out. So that's why it's really important to keep those drains clear. Now, you're going to want to be extra wary when buying a car with side skirts on. You can see here, I've got side skirts on. I've got no access to look at that sill at all. And that's why when I had these fitted, I actually replaced both sills on both sides. So what you want to do is you want to run your hand and they should be flat. If you can feel bubbling, that means the inside has already started to rust and you want to start thinking about getting them replaced. The longer you leave it, the more money it's probably going to cost you, because obviously if you have to replace the inner sill as well, it's going to be more expensive. Now, a rust-free MX5 unfortunately does not really exist. People do advertise them like that, but they all have some degree of rust on them. So for example, with this car, the reason why I had one sill done is because this side here was actually going slightly, so I thought we'll have both sides cut out so they're done at the same time. Now what we found on the other side, that actually this hole to about here was actually, even though it looked perfect, was all filler. So it would be worth bringing some sort of magnet or something to just make sure that it's actually metal all along the sill and it's not just filled with filler like mine was.
But not anymore.
But not anymore. But price-wise then, to get both sills replaced, you can be looking up to, I think my local person did it for £400 a side for £400 a side for just the outer sill on each side. I had another quote from another MX5 specialist and it was £800 painted just for the outer each side. So you can see where this gets really expensive, especially if you've spent a couple grand, which is probably on the top end for most of these at the moment. The prices have come down. So you're spending £1,000 on an MX5, you don't want to be spending £2 grand in rust bills on your next MOT.
So other things to consider when you're buying your MX5 is obviously things you'd consider buying any car. You want to make sure tyres are all matching, if not all four matching, at least in pairs, so it shows that they've been replaced at regular intervals. You want to check the service history of the engine, make sure it's been serviced regularly, on time, preferably by a garage, but a lot of people nowadays are confident enough to service a car themselves, so just make sure you've got receipts for the oil and filters and things like that. You want to check the oil cap. It's a bit hot at the minute, so I'm not going to do that right now. Make sure there's no milky residue underneath. That shows that the car's been on a lot of short journeys and hasn't allowed the temperature in the engine to build up, so you get a little residue under the oil cap. You want to check the amount of oil in it. Dipstick, obviously. A lot of the MX5s don't have dipsticks because they break, but you can still pull it out. Coolant, you want to make sure that there's the correct coolant level in it. I know it's hard with the plastic bottles because you can barely see in them anyway, but you want to give the car a little rock and make sure that there's coolant in there. It's very hard to find an unmolested MX5 now because so many 17-year-olds want to buy them because they want to make cool drift cars. Ooh. But if you do buy one that's already modified, make sure it's top quality parts, make sure they're not eBay coilovers, joms or whatever. You want to make sure if it's a turboed car, you want to make sure that the turbo is a proper turbo, TDO4, Garrett, Pulsar even now because they're becoming a bit better, but not cheap eBay turbos, cheap eBay manifolds because they'll crack. Other things you want to check for are the calipers. MX5s are known for having sticky calipers, so when you're driving you can hear a whoop 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 noise, and yeah, the brake calipers get very hot. You can, after the test drive, just feel the wheel, and if the wheel's hot then you know you've probably got a caliper that's binding a little bit. My Mark 1 caliper went. Rob's had both his front calipers go on this, that's why he's upgraded to the Willwoods. The other thing you want to look for is suspension knocks. So when you take it on a test drive, don't have any music on. Listen out for any knocking or rubbing because people fit bigger wheels to these. You might have some tyre scrubbing. So make sure you listen out when you're going full lock around the left corner, full lock when you're going around a right corner, and make sure when you go over bumps or speed bumps or hit a pothole, don't purposely hit potholes in people's cars, but just make sure that there's no rattles or knocks from the suspension. Most of the parts are relatively cheap to replace on the suspension if you're going for OEM. I've just bought track rod ends for 20 quid for both sides, drop links 20 quid for both sides, so it's not expensive to replace these parts. But make sure you listen to them because you don't want to get home and go, oh yeah, I thought I heard that on the test drive but didn't do anything about it. You could get 40 quid off the car, 50 quid off the car, whatever. And every penny in your pocket is more money for mods.
Now, one of the things you're definitely going to want to check on here is you want to get on all fours and check that catalytic converter. You're going to want it to be an OEM one if you're going to want to run one of these, okay? Otherwise, what you're going to find is that a couple of years down the line, this little cheap eBay thing that someone's slopped on there is going to fail your MOT and going to cost you some money. Now, the reason why this has disappeared is either because Jack, the lad, 18-year-old, has most likely decatted this car because it's cool, man, and it makes it faster, even though it doesn't. It just makes it louder.
Does make it faster if you have a tune.
Yeah,
But
no one's dropping £800 on an ECU when they're going to decat, are they?
yeah, true.
Anyway, so have a look, compare with some photos online of what the OEM looks like. Now, if you've got a modified example like this, I've got a 200cc Sports Cat which does pass MOT. Well, it did for the turbo. We'll find out in September whether it still works. So I would recommend to buy one of these with the spec that you want, okay? And I say that because there are 30,000 million special editions which I will troll through in a second. I have to get the list up because there's so many. But when I mean like the spec that you want, I mean that in terms of stuff that you can't upgrade. So stuff like putting on ABS, installing aircon is going to cost an absolute fortune. So if you want that on the car, you're going to want to buy a car with ABS aircon pre-installed already. Stuff you can do pretty easily, stuff like electric windows like that, all fine. You know, I'd be looking for more for a rust, for example. For example, this was a complete poverty spec, is what we call it. Had no options at all. It's basically a radio and a steering wheel. It had windy windows. I put electric in there. It's got no ABS, no aircon, and I'm fine with that. But yeah, so buy the spec that you want, that you can't upgrade. Does that make sense? No, probably not, but we'll go from there. Anyway, so if we go through all the limited editions then, starting off from oldest to newest, Sport Classic Red, then you had a 10th anniversary, and then a special edition, then an Icon, then the California, which is the yellow one, then you have the Osala, the Jasper Conran, the Phoenix, Arizona, the
Arizona
Trilogy.
was also yellow as well, I think.
I think it also was yellow, yeah.
Trilogy was black.
No, they could have come in Sunlight Silver. Thank you for interrupting me
Sorry.
in my list.
Sorry.
Trilogy, Montana, Nevada, Indiana, Angels, Euphonic, Arctic, Icon. As you can see, there's quite a few.
They were raiding the parts bin for them, weren't they?
If there's, yeah, there's quite a lot of limited editions, therefore making them not very limited. But they pretty much ran one every year. So yeah, just buy the spec that you want. Get the cleanest example, the most rust-free that you can find, with the lowest mileage, I guess. There are some good low mileage examples out there, but the engines, you can buy an engine for like 400 quid, so I won't worry about it too much.
Alright, well thanks for watching guys. If you've made it this far, we hope this has helped you when you're looking to buy your own MX5, Mark II or 2.5. We're going to do one on the Mark 1 very soon. I'm going on holiday though, so it'll be after that. So have a nice day, be good, buy an MX5 because they're loads of fun.